Welcome back to Incremental, the Continuous Improvement Podcast. This is episode 143, our practice edition, where we go through lean improvements made throughout the week and tie them back to lean principles. I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing and ARDA.
And I'm Devin and Uriel of Lichen Precision. And our quote this week: finished goods are products that we have made that no one wants. Raw materials are products that we have bought that we don't need. From Tom Greenwood.
It's a great quote because I think that's like the big flip in perspective. That's honestly still sort of hard to like really feel that way. Like inventory does feel safe. Like having it in the building, you're like, great, I know we can do the thing.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because I think every time you sort of learn the lesson, it's easy to attribute it to something else, right? Like, oh, well, yeah, our plans changed. That's why all those cardboard boxes are there. We don't really use them because, right, like we changed how we ship and it's way cheaper to do it the other way. Instead of being like, we shouldn't have bought all those boxes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny. Yeah, I have some friends who have shops and they have like pallet racking covered in parts.
Yeah.
You know, that are like done, that they're not ordered. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh my God. That is so terrifying. Bold. But also, I just have this funny thing where, like, someone would come visit my shop and they'd be like, well, what do you make? And I'm like,
well, we shipped it all.
We don't have anything here to show you. And for a little while, I was kind of embarrassed about it. But now it's definitely a point of pride.
That's very funny.
That as soon as it's done, it leaves the building. You know, obviously, there's some in-process work, but...
Do you keep any like a showcase or anything like that? Or not really.
I have thought about it. I have like a bin of seconds parts that like lives under my desk that I'll rifle through and show somebody. But and we have like a handful of extras of certain things. Like we have like one, you know, like maybe 5 sheet pans of stuff that are like, we might use this again. If it's not used in the next 6 months, we'll throw it away, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't take comfort in it.
I mean, it's the way to be. It's like, again, this an implementation we just did. At some point, because they definitely were sort of the mindset of like, the more we don't like running out of that thing we sell. Let's make a lot of it and put it on the shelf.
Uh-huh.
But then they wouldn't have something else that did get ordered. And so then they'd be scrambling. And so at some point I was just like, everything on the shelf there is like tied up man hours that you can never get back. And because, sometimes they'd have to go through stuff to take something to ship an order that was ordered.
Oh, like take something apart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is all poorly allocated machine time, capacity, human time that is now on the shelf. And we ran into that at Austere, where I thought we needed a second CNC, and we talked about it on the podcast, but basically at some point I just looked at our buffer and it was like, well, we have a lot of parts here, which is all capacity. It just wasn't
the wrong
allocated
ones
properly.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like, that's a sort of a big shift to really just see it as, like commitments you can't unmake in terms of allocating your resources.
Yeah, totally. And then once you see it though, actually like doing the work to actualize that is so challenging, right? Because if you don't maintain a raw material buffer, likely you will run out of raw material, because most of us kind of suck at our jobs. And similarly, if you don't have some buffer of finished goods, in many cases, you will have upset customers. But I think the perspective of what that actually means is the important part, and like having the goal in mind of where we're trying to get to.
For sure. And it's funny you say that. So I was rereading Beyond the Goal, and in it, Goldratt mentions that and I haven't done the math, but this is what he said, that in a distribution model, when you ship products to a distributor, knowing how many they will sell compared to a different distributor is kind of difficult.
Yeah.
And so if you actually hold back inventory in a central hub, it turns out that the amount of inventory you'll need to satisfy all the customers is reduced by the square root of the number of customers it serves.
Okay.
By that factor, right? So if
Yeah.
it was like it's shipping to 4 locations, you're going to be able to hold the square root of 4. So 1/2, right? 1 over
Mhm.
1/2 the inventory at that central hub and keep everyone supplied.
Yeah.
It would stand to reason also that that would be the case for materials that flow to a bunch of different processes, right? Like if you have one stock size of aluminum and then you cut it into 30 different lengths for different parts you make, you don't need to hold a lot of it if you cut it to order. But the second you make a cut, you are committed to that being allocated to, part number 17 or whatever.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think the other point you mentioned is big, is like building in those buffers intelligently. I think it seems like people who have not sort of read about TPS and Kanban kind of think about it in terms of like there's no intermediate buffers. It's like, well, we're making that thing, so when we order it, it's going to turn into that.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard. The only answer to running out is having a lot on the shelf, instead of saying, well, what if we have a little bit more of the precursor materials, but we haven't assembled them yet. And so then our assembly process is 2 days instead of 3 weeks by the time it goes through procurement and through all the different parts of the process and gets us parts.
Yeah.
But the buffer thing is big. Yeah.
It's astounding like how simple it is, but also how long it takes to get your head sort of around
I know.
it.
We're on like year 4 or something. And every day you're like, oh, okay,
That's
this is
what
funny.
they were talking
I
about.
actually, I remember we recorded an episode where I was like, it finally clicked for me what production, like why overproduction is the mother of all wastes, right? Like why it's the biggest waste. And I feel like I don't remember. Like it unclicked. And I'm like, damn, I want to go listen to that. It's kind of, yeah. I remember it vividly being like, oh, this makes total sense. And now it's like slipped out of my head. Anyway, should we talk improvements?
Yeah, let's jump into some stuff.
I'll go first.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I just made an improvement to our podcast template because I realized it had a typo. So we stopped and we fixed.
Apologies to all of you that have been harmed by our faulty product for however long that's existed.
But unfortunately, when we shipped it on to the next station, but I guess in-station quality, right? We were responsible.
For
shipping a defect.
Yeah. I think, so sort of like backing up to, root kind of cause or not root cause, but like what are we trying to tackle here?
Mm-hmm.
Talked about this a little bit recently, but at least as things currently stand in my business right now, I'm seeing 3 broad categories of tasks that people have to deal with do on a daily basis. And one of those is kind of like mission critical core competency value add tasks, right? And we've talked about sort of like the management of those quite a lot on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it remains to be it continues to be difficult to organize, but that's the one I think most people focus on for good. The second is like ancillary but regular tasks, so that would be cleaning the bathroom, sweeping the floor, taking the garbage out, organizing stock remnants, getting all the stuff, like whatever air compressor maintenance, cleaning filters, all this kind of stuff. And then the third, and we've talked about kind of the Kamishibai board is how we're tackling that second category.
Yep.
Pretty effectively. And then there's this third category that is one-time things that need to be done that are unique and fall anywhere sort of on the spectrum of urgency and importance. And so we have a whiteboard that we throw stuff up there, and it can be anything from like whatever I'm trying to think of a good example. This one tool is breaking. We need to figure out why, and we need to order more of them for this job that's happening. Or it could be as simple as like the break room keeps not getting swept. Like, why is this happening? We need to sweep the break room. Whatever. It can be anything that's not a routine, repetitive task.
Okay. Would improvements fall under that, or I guess?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of stuff on there that is also improvements.
Okay.
But things are just kind of going there to die.
This is very relatable.
It is. So instead of just going over them over and over again on a daily basis, we have started assigning them to people. And that at least is adding a measure of accountability.
Yeah.
And it's making it so we don't have to like rediscuss it every day. We can just be like, so-and-so, is this still on your radar? Do you have it on your list? Or like, what's the status?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of us just being like, oh yeah, that thing, we still need to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Still.
So we're like early on in this, but I think
a
lot of people can relate, and it seems to be helping somewhat so far. We've started crossing things off, so that's a good sign.
That's awesome. It's funny you say that. I literally started doing the same thing, but haven't thought about it as like an aspect of the business that is ongoing. It's just been very top of mind with the move. There's been a lot of those one-off, but they're big tasks.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had them listed, and it was like, oh yeah, all that does need to happen. But now it's kind of like, okay, you're doing that. Yeah, same thing. But I feel like that's a good, good third category.
I think it's been helpful for us to break it out as a third category of task from all of the other routine stuff, both value add and non-value add.
Well, the funny thing is, I think the power in a lot of these things is recognizing that something is a core functionality of the business and treating it like that. Like there's a never-ending stream of the things in that third category. And so let's come up with a system of getting them done effectively and not treat them as like, oh, right, this week we have to do, right? Like by stepping up one layer and saying, hey, there's a third category here, and like building out a system. That's cool.
Yeah. Been helpful.
Very cool. Wow. I'm just reading these, and it feels like we made these improvements many weeks ago, but I guess we did skip a chunk of time there. So we added an envelope loading chute at our shipping station. So instead of assembling straps, setting them down, when you're done reviewing the order, picking them back up and moving them into an envelope, now when you set them down, it is on a chute. So then when you're done reviewing the order, make sure everything's on there, you slide the envelope up over the chute and pull it all off into the envelope. It's one of those things, we were trying to design something that works for everything, but 90% of the packages we ship are in one size envelope. So we just built a solution for that, and the rest we kind of hand load. I was doing some work with Elisha, my brother, and every time I went to pick something up, he'd be like, what's the landing zone for that? Which is actually a great habit of like, where are you putting that down, and go get that spot ready first.
Interesting.
But definitely the like picking stuff up and setting it back down and then going to pick it up again is
Yeah.
Yeah, an easy one to eliminate.
Nice. So we've been doing a bunch of work on the cam templating side of things. And one of these like ridiculous things that we continue to rework is we have different machines in the shop with different spindle speeds, and going through programming and having to edit all of your default spindle speeds and feeds. So we just started adding tool presets to all of our common tools. So this has been there. I think it was even there in HSM Works when I used to use that. And I never really noticed it because it would just say default, and I didn't pay attention to the toggle. But you can set, I think, as many as you want, presets for a tool that, so you could have like a roughing and a finishing preset for the same tool. You can have a different preset for different machines.
No way.
Yeah, super cool. In Fusion, yeah.
Wow.
So there's two kind of use cases. One, obviously, when we're programming something for the first time, this really streamlines it. And then second is sometimes we'll have to do an edit to an existing program to run it on a different machine. And it makes that whole process a lot faster. Interesting.
Would it make sense just to program to the lowest common denominator except when something?
Yeah, we often do that, but like, for example, right now we're doing some production work where we actually are chasing cycle time.
Gotcha.
And those extra 6,000 RPMs do make a difference. Considerable difference. It's not, what is it? It's over 30%.
Right.
So, yeah.
That makes sense. We added an improvements channel to the Arda Slack.
Slack? There's an Arda Slack.
Oh, there's an Arda Slack. Huh. Yeah.
Didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. I kind of mentioned it, I guess. We've hired 2 full-time folks and a part-time person. The 2 full-time are on the development team, so building software, and then the part-time guy is doing customer support and actually has been building some cool stuff as well, and then did an on-site implementation with us. And
cool.
The hope, I think, on all fronts is for him to kind of take that on and move more into that role.
Nice.
But yeah, so we have a Slack channel. It's a bit of a learning. I don't know. Sometimes the communication gets so like intense that it's like a lot of time just to keep up on all the communication going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
At which point you're kind of like, well, when am I meant to do work?
Right.
If I'm just communicating all the time. So anyway, so now we have an improvements channel in the Arda Slack. I don't know. We've talked about like kind of, it's not burnout exactly, but like continuous improvement is kind of exhausting in that it's never ending. And I feel like I go through these waves of enthusiasm, where sometimes you're just like, man, this is like, really, I'm going to take a half hour out of my day. Like, I'm just going to get this job done. I know it could be better, but like everywhere I look, this is the other downside, I think, of becoming more and more aware of waste. I feel like when at the beginning, I was very sort of myopically focused on like, I keep reaching to pick up a screwdriver. What if I move it a little closer? And I'm like, yeah, big win. And that is a win of sorts, and it's also super achievable. And
there's more dopamine hits. It's like closer to TikTok and further from reading a novel.
And then you're like, oh, actually, the information system in the business needs a lot of improvement. Like that's kind of a bit more.
And you're like, oh, the information system in the business isn't a system.
Let's systemize. Yeah. So anyway, Kyle's definitely brought some significant improvement energy at a time when we just moved the shop, which is just so much work, and like I was feeling pretty drained. But
Oh yeah. And now you
kind of
guys are
being
working next to each other? Ish?
not yet. The
Okay.
move is not complete.
Gotcha.
The office is still filled with random stuff.
Ah.
Yeah. Anyway, he was like, well, if we're preaching continuous improvement, like we should be doing continuous improvement. Like, yes, that is unarguable.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
That is correct. So anyway, we have an improvement channel in Arda. Hopefully get people kind of thinking about it and posting even little wins. And yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. So we are, speaking of forever improvements, we are prepping for the CMM arrival next month and starting to think through kind of what our inspection process is going to look like. Trying to make it a bit more of a process and a little bit less slapshod. And currently, our scheme is that whoever programmed the part is going to be the person who inspects the part.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little discussion in the shop the other day. There's like a little bit of a conflict of interest there in terms of giving yourself a pass for things that aren't good.
Yes.
But there's also a major upside in that it closes the loop on seeing the outcome of your actions.
Mm-hmm.
So for the moment, we're going to be optimistic and try and continue that on that path with the thought that closing the loop will be really beneficial. So in that vein, we needed a way to flag the programmers when it was time to do an inspection. So basically, the shop floor will proof out a part, do basic inspection stuff, and provide us with some notes on what probably needs to be edited in the program, if anything, and then hand off a first article inspection to us to do like a final review. So there will be multiple eyes on the part. It won't just be one person. So anyway, the improvement was very small. We got another whiteboard. That's a place where we can put the work order traveler slips to flag us when something is ready and needs an inspection. And then I think shortly we're going to be moving our whole programming area, like our programming desks, to the same location where inspection is going to happen. So I think that's going to sort of morph into a general
that's cool
workflow board for that station.
Very cool.
Yeah. Excited.
Will that whiteboard be divided out by programmers?
Right now, yeah, it is. So right now, it is like first article inspection, and it's divided by each person. And then I think we're going to add in an area for edits that need to be made. Right now, if an edit needs to be made, whoever's setting up the job will just bring it back to us, and we have a place on our desk to put it, each individually.
Oh, I see. So this will sort of be like a board for triggering the people who occupy the programming / inspection cell.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I mentioned this is sort of, I'll do just a bit of rapid fire. One of the reasons we love doing on-sites with Arda is just eating the dog food, like using the product we built in a really intense way. Just come up with so many little improvements. So a few on our latest install. I feel like it would be nice to bring we add a lot of example parts to the outside of bins just to make retrievability faster.
Yeah.
And so I think a double-sided tape that goes on the bin, and then you stick the issue is like a 440 black screw, taping. I normally just take clear tape and tape it to the front of the bin. But if it's on a weird colored background, you can barely see the thing. So I think white double-sided tape, and then you stick the part to it, and then you tape over it would be a nice way of adding example parts. When you duplicate, so when you create a card, there's a duplicate button if you scroll all the way to the right.
Okay.
So you don't have to like re-input the vendor and the location and everything if you're doing a bunch of parts on the same shelf or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But the duplicate button was duplicating like the product URL and the
Oh,
SKU. So then you'd have to like make sure to go delete all the things you had to delete. So now it doesn't copy those.
interesting.
We added sublocation on the labels that Arta prints. It was just printing the location. So now
Okay.
it adds like a dash or something and then sublocation. Um, advanced mode button. So there's advanced and simple mode in
Okay.
Arta because there's a ton of fields and most of the time you don't need most of them and it's just
Yeah.
a lot to look at. So I was running into a problem where I like to work in simple mode because it's way faster and easier to look at. But every now and then you want access to the advanced mode. And what I would have to do is X out of the window I was working in, go make the switch, go back into the item, edit, and then add that. So just adding an advanced mode button in the simple mode workflows so that if you wanted it.
Nice.
And then also, and we haven't implemented this one, so it does not belong in this podcast, but another insight there was just that certain people, some companies, different people deal with different vendors. And
Yeah.
so being able to assign, right now you can assign products like different Kanbans to people, but you can't just say anything from McMaster-Carr, Devin's going to procure.
Oh, yeah.
So
Got you.
just like being able to set a default person by vendor was
Yeah.
another one.
Got it. Nice. In prep for our CMM arrival, we needed to reorganize the shipping area. So Robin reorganized the shipping area, and I think it's an improvement. And then we also we reorganized sort of the whiteboard that was at that station because our workflow has changed a bit since it first existed. So it used to be kind of like mostly a status board. And right now we're designating status up until, aside from when something is out of the shop at a post processor, with the work order slip traveling with the actual product.
Say that again?
So we used to like, if a part was like ready for shipping to the customer, we'd put the work order slip on a whiteboard under a category that was ready to ship to the customer.
Okay.
Now those parts go on a rack. That's a section of the rack is ready to ship to customer, and the work order slip stays with the parts.
So you don't have to sort of like connect the two or figure out where the parts are.
Yeah, so a bunch of it was redundant. So aside from the category that was like, this is currently away at Anodize or some other post processor, it was not being utilized. So we turned that into, we basically added a common hiccup that we have is we receive an order. That part is going to need post processing, usually Anodize.
Okay.
But we don't request quotes for it right away because no one remembers to.
Okay.
And then so the parts are ready to ship, and we're like, oh, we don't have pricing for this that we need to put on our purchase order that we ship with the parts. Now we have to email the customer, or sorry, the vendor, wait a day, generally speaking, before we can ship these. So right now, our secondary work order slip goes to that board, which flags the person responsible for getting quotes, which is the shipping person, to get those quotes preemptively so that once the parts arrive there, we're ready to ship.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So this was a funny... yeah, a lot of details. A funny one from the install. So when we do installs, we do quite a bit of batch printing, which don't tell anyone. And what we were doing...
It's made to demand, so it's okay.
We did, like, at the beginning, I was like, do we want a batch print? And we sort of came to the conclusion that yes, but for reasons that we should be working on. And anyway, so we were printing a ton of cards, like 150 cards or whatever,
Yeah.
and then laminating them, and then going through the stack. So like the card comes out of the printer, we pick it up one at a time, put it in a laminating pouch, feed it into the laminator, and then they all come out in a pile, and then you sort of figure out what goes where. And I was like, wait a second, we can just put what did I do first? Sorry, I'm trying to think of the evolution of the improvements. I'm not going to remember exactly. Oh, I think I was sorting them by category out of the printer and then laminating or something. I don't remember. Anyway, but then I was like, wait a second. What if we just feed each category into a different part of the laminators so that when they come out, they just fall into a bin of that category? So you're picking it up once, then laminating into that category. So you're picking it up and sorting with that one pickup.
Okay.
So that was much better. Then we laid an example card on each category so that you could see, like, we were doing like hundreds of nuts, bolts, weld nuts, different. So
Sure.
kind of like, okay, these ones are screws, these ones are nuts, these ones are washers, these ones like that. It was just funny. It was like a very, very operation focused, process blind type of moment where you're like, all right, how quickly can I laminate these cards? All right, how quickly can I sort these cards? It's like, well, you already picked it up. What if you sort it?
Nice. This is a small one, but I don't know. Like thinking about like what kind of waste. I think it's obvious to everybody the kind of waste this would be, but I'm trying to actually think of the definition. We have these pneumatic vices, same vices that you do.
Mm-hmm.
On one machine, we have a trunnion that's built to receive them as they are, like with their built-in hardware. On another machine, we have a 0-point system that doesn't interface with those vices. And then we had one adapter that would interface between the two from when we initially just bought one vice. So for a while, we've been pushing all of our work that needed those vices to the one machine that I could set up multiple on them easily. And then this last couple weeks, we are in the middle of a really long run on the production machine. One more tick in the negative box for batch work. And we had some other work that really needed to use those vices, and we didn't have a way to do it. So we made 4 more new adapters for the pneumatic vices, so now they can be run on any of the machines theoretically.
And so one machine uses an adapter and the other machine doesn't, but at least you can put them on the different machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. So I don't know what waste that is, but just having versatility, I guess. Lack of flexibility.
What waste is that?
It results in waiting.
It does result. Yeah, so there's overproduction, overprocessing, excess inventory, defects, transportation, wasted motion, waiting, wasted human potential. Yeah, I guess waiting probably.
Yeah.
I feel like it's right. I guess standardization is not a waste, but I feel like standardization eliminates a lot of these wastes often.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, digging more into like the job shop problem and all these, I think I mentioned this, but there's like literally, if you Google the job shop problem and read the Wikipedia article, in the right in the intro, they mentioned the relaxed job shop problem, which is that a job can flow to a category of machine, like like the CNC, like the milling department, right? Rather than it needs to go to this one mill, which just indicates the significance of standardization.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a customer, I think not one customer, but We had one customer in particular who was having significant issues with scanning QR codes and it just taking a long time to load.
Uh-huh.
And so Kyle stood up a faster service that makes like the loading process is much faster. And it works really well. It's also a good prototype of the next service we're going to tackle as like a standalone service, like not through Coda. Is going to be sort of, we're basically trying to knock off the biggest pain points our customers experience with building out the features we build out. It's basically like going after the ones that are sort of the highest pain point, and then the idea is that once we've sort of stripped more and more pieces of the product out of the back of the current platform into our own software, then it's essentially like this headless system with an interface that's built in Coda. Okay. The UI is built in Coda, but then we will essentially build our own UI.
Interesting. Cool.
And the cool thing there, and this is all architecture that Miguel kind of conceived of and has executed in the past at other companies. But the cool thing about it is that then it's headless, meaning there isn't a UI to access the data. It is one UI that can access the data, right? And I think our UI will be very sort of focused on usability. But a lot of people like you guys and many other shops have some existing system, right? Like an Airtable or an ERP or something. And those two systems should be able to talk. So this way, it will end up with a very robust API is the thought.
Nice. Cool. Excuse me. So this was kind of a few that overlap. So, since we bought our M300 mill turn machine, we've been in a slow post-development process to fully take advantage of all of the things it can do.
Okay.
And that just was kind of hanging because of life, because we were busy. It's a couple things. You have to have the machine kind of needs to be idle, and then it has to remain idle while you go through some iterations, and there's a back and forth with your person you're working with to edit the post processor. That, or you need to be able to re-idle the machine very quickly. So we kind of found ourselves with an opportunity and went for it, and it ended up being frustrating. And about 3 days all said and done. But we did, I think, finally, knock on wood, get a fully functioning post that will do all of the things that machine is capable of doing in sequence without any hiccups. We're having a lot of issues where, like, transitioning from turning to 5-axis milling or turning to positional 5-axis milling, things were hanging up and we're getting alarms and we couldn't really sort it out. But I think we have it fully sorted finally. And then the other thing, which was just like, sort of can't believe we went this long doing this, but
the sign of a good improvement.
If you're embarrassed, it's going to be a good one. Because we hadn't like nailed down a final post processor, I had never like assigned the correct post processor to our machine definition in Fusion. So every time you'd go to post a program, it'd be like, get the one with that date and the B at the end.
Right.
And so today, finally, I updated all the machines, not just the M300, to have like a legible post processor name, reassigned it, made sure there was some weird little things with spindle speeds not being correct and stuff, so there'd be weird posting alarms. And I think we're pretty much ready to put that to bed, at least for a little while.
So you may be embarrassed about that. I'll one up you. What is a machine definition? I haven't really.
Is that your
Anyway,
question? Yeah.
run.
You can just like, so what do you do when you post a program? Do you pick a machine or do you just pick a post?
I just pick a post.
Okay. That's probably fine for
I'm
most
living in
stuff.
black and white.
You can have a machine that's named and you set all of its like capabilities, like its speeds. I think it helps with simulation accuracy.
So this is you're simulating. I saw that Fusion released an ability to simulate the full machine. I haven't really gotten
Oh, we're
that
not
set
doing
up.
full machine sim yet.
Okay.
But we do check for like what I meant by that was just like if you go to see like how long it's going to take, it will.
Oh,
I
I see.
think it will be more accurate if it
Because
knows
it
its
knows.
rapids,
Gotcha.
stuff like
That makes sense.
that. But then you can pre-assign a post processor that it will auto pick and an output location for the posted file, so you're not having to
Very
hunt
nice.
for that. It's pretty basic stuff, but
That's cool.
It is handy. Yeah. And then things like spindle speeds, so it'll tell you like this tool is out of your spindle speed range. Do you want to go edit that before you post this versus finding it at the machine?
Got it.
Alarms.
Oh, that's in station quality.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It seems like the machine manufacturer would have an interest in your post that you just spent all this time working on. Does it get back to them at any point, or would that just be? They give you a 10% discount on your next one.
It's a complicated world.
I mean, I kind of get it. It's just weird. It feels like dual ownership is no ownership is fundamentally the problem.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's sort of astounding that this sort of exists the way it does. It also seems like the cam companies would have a vested interest in us being successful. And you would think that with the level of resources those companies have, they could probably easily partner with shops to develop these things more effectively.
Right.
But yeah, I mean the current situation.
So much repeated work, right? Like everyone's doing what you're doing, or just living with the problems.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure behind the scenes there's a lot of copy and pasting going on, but yeah, right now you have a machine manufacturer. They make a machine. They publish information about it in a manual. Then you have a distributor that's a separate entity. The distributor effectively has to learn from that manual along with the customers, and hopefully they are one step ahead. In this case, I don't think they were, which is part of the reason it was frustrating, because there was not really a clear answer for why things were happening the way they were. Then you have the company producing the software, as a third party, and then a fourth party in this case is the company that is support for the third party producing the post.
Right.
And yeah, it does seem like it's a little bit of like a tragedy of the commons where like nobody's fully responsible, and so everybody's sort of doing a little bit of a half-assed job. I mean, that's not totally true. Like the people doing the actual work are great. Like the people we're working with are fantastic.
Totally.
But the companies as an entity, it's kind of like, come on, guys.
Well, I also wonder if like the use case we are experiencing is not exactly where the industry came from. Right. Because
absolutely. Yeah.
If you're connecting the thing to 3 different robots that do X, Y, and Z, and you put some weird fixture with that uses a bunch of the M codes on your table because it's running one part for its whole life.
Yeah.
Like you're going to build a custom system essentially.
Yeah. If you're selling, to Foxconn, I think the expectation is that they have a department that can handle this within their company,
or that it's part of the contract that you're signing with them is building them the whatever they need.
Sure.
I wonder if we're just like a weird little slice of the industry. That said, it does feel like a growing slice, but also if they just leveraged that slice and built the posts to accommodate that standardization and the configurability to move to those more custom applications.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like getting over that hurdle. That's a big thing to chew on.
Yamazen does have a post that they partnered with to produce for this machine.
Hmm.
But they partnered with a company that we don't have a relationship with and aren't interested in working with. And part of
So you
having
can't get it?
we could get it, but it's relatively expensive for something
Oh,
like part of having post support is ongoing support to
right.
make edits as needed, and we don't have that relationship with them. We're happy with the company we are
Yeah.
currently working with.
Crazy.
So anyway, yeah, it's weird. We don't have to go into the details any more
Yep.
than we already have, but
So this is a weird one. We've been probably talked about it many times. Making a webbing dispenser and cutter for multiple webbing sizes
yeah.
that is aimed at small batch sizes is sort of a non-trivial problem. It's totally solvable. Like it's not like we're scratching our heads and we're out of solutions, but it's one of those ones where you're looking at the problem and you're like, there has to be a simple thing we can just throw together in an afternoon. And we're kind of, 3-4 years later going like, okay, we might just have to like bite the bullet and put some real effort into solving this problem. But basically, like, you need enough friction that the rolls don't unroll on their own. If you stand rolls of webbing up on their edge, unless they have very good guides on both sides, it's very prone to the webbing sort of falling off the edge and then sort of like kind of messing up the whole roll. You have sort of inertia issues of like, if you want to unwind a roll fast, now the roll has inertia, and so it'll keep spooling off. And if there's nowhere to catch that slack, then the weight of that slack gets higher and higher, and so it sort of speeds up, and so your whole roll can end up unwound on the floor. And like each of these are totally solvable. And then if you stick a rod through the middle of a roll and you want a lot of rolls in one rack, and so it's tempting to put a rod through a lot of rolls. Well, now what if the middle one runs out?
Yeah.
Have
you tried doing it like the AMS and the bamboo, where it like rides on the edge of the roll?
So that is a possibility, and then having like adjustable dividers that sort of lay in next to the rolls so that you can set the width to support both sides, because the AMS has a spool. So I suppose we could build spools that then interact with the system. That would be a thought. My current thought is to make a shelving unit where each shelf is a spool, and then just making good routing for the webbing out the side of the shelving unit onto our cutting surface, and sort of like a selector that has a bunch of pieces of webbing sticking out, right? And so you can sort of switch to the one you want. The current approach, like the whole industry is built around batching. So like you set up a machine with a roll on it, and then you tell it how many you want. So if you want 100 pieces, it can run through and make 100 pieces super fast. But if you want 10 pieces and then switch to a different webbing and type in all these different numbers, there's no presets on the machines. Like,
and this is for auto cutting, or this is for manual cutting that you're wanting to do?
Right now we're manually cutting it, which is kind of goofy, but the machine that does alternating cuts, because we have one angled and one flat. I don't know. It's this big mess of problems that, I don't know, there's the feeding problem of many different webbing styles. Then there's the cutting problem. Anyway, so we do have a new experiment running, but the conclusion that I'm sort of coming to is I just need to like find a day and a half to like design something real, and then just make it, like 3D print it. And
good luck finding that.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it is working, and it's been working. It's just like I think what the nice part about that clarity, I guess, is I don't think I'm going to keep looking for quick solutions.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's working. It's not ideal, and at some point when we want to make it ideal, we'll have to put some real effort in.
Yeah, totally. Couple little things. I'll just pop through them here real quick. We made today I made a 3D printed holder for a gauge ring on our surface plate. So we often will calibrate our height gauge and then we will check it on a gauge ring for like a circular ID measurement just to make sure that it's correct, and that it calibrated correctly. But to keep that thing square, we're often like clamping it to a square or like holding it oddly in a V block or some random thing. And it's just been like, why are we doing this? So today I finally just made a 3D printed holder, just holds it in place. It can slide around real easy.
Very nice. Does it matter if it's perfectly square or not really?
You know, we haven't actually done the math on that.
Like do a sensitivity analysis.
Yeah, I think that the amount that it would be out of square is probably less than the like normal deviation in the height gauge's accuracy, like its repeatability. But
you could also maybe do like 3 pads and then adjust it to square or something.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be round one. We're just going to see how it works, and
that's a great approach, incremental approach.
Indeed.
Yeah,
hit it.
I thought I had this, but apparently I didn't. We broke our sewing fixture for our 3/4 inch strap. Didn't have a backup. So I got it 3D printed a new one, but more importantly, created an Articard and then put the pre-sliced file on the card. And also, critically, for getting stuff off of my plate, logged our shop computer into the bamboo profile. You know, you can't multiple users can't access the same bamboo printer, which...
Wait, is that true?
I haven't succeeded, and I've looked on forums. Like, if you set it up on the network, I think it's only visible if you're logged in as the person who owns the printer. But maybe they've changed it.
Oh, interesting. Maybe we're just using the same login.
Easy fix was just logging in the shop computer as my... I don't know why. In saying this out loud, that should have happened a long time ago. But now, where we do most of the ordering, when you scan the card for that 3D print, you can just download the file and send it. Will actually reached out. Did you guys ever get that figured out? I tried to text him instructions.
We discussed it this morning. We are still, and I was actually just about to bring this up to discuss with you, we're still kind of going back and forth on what our implementation is going to look like. Have you standardized filament in your printer?
I mean, basically, yes.
Because one thing we are coming across this morning, and I've already come across this without even adding these things to cards, is if it's sliced for a particular filament in a particular spot in the AMS, you can't just reload that and have it run properly, I believe.
I think the sliced file from Bamboo maintains the geometry. I could be wrong. Oh, I can test it live.
The geometry?
Meaning you can go back to the configure button and reconfigure the print. I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
And in fact, I will tell you right now. Okay, so I just opened it. If I go to prepare, whereas like G-code files.
Okay, so you're saving the sliced file, not the G-code file.
I'm saving the sliced file. I often put the G-code file in the STL as well, so you could reslice it. Does that make sense?
But you're not. Yeah, okay.
But here now I'm kind of curious. Anyway, this is not good podcast content. So
besides the point, I think it might be worth standardizing our AMS.
I was gonna say another thing that really hit home for me on this last install, and this sounds kind of, I don't know how to express this better, except that like people should take, and me included, people should take owning supplies seriously. Like, if you want to make a part, then like think through how it's going to be made, how it's going to be stored, where your minimums are. Maybe get a custom bin to hold it well.
Yeah.
Or build one, or 3D print one. But it's very funny. Like, we were sort of talking about that type 3, the third classification of tasks around the shop. Is like the second you identify it as like something you're going to consistently do, and it's like, okay, well, do it. Like, do it for real. Like, set it up so it works. instead of being like, oh, it's not meant to be that way, or I don't know. So like if you're producing these rings for your tool cart, it's like, okay, this is a process we do. We produce this thing,
Yeah.
like let's make it work well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we standardized our filament, and I thought we were going to do a lot more color coded stuff.
Oh,
We don't really. I think probably at some point we will, but just I don't know. Hasn't been happening. Right now we
yeah.
color code with e-tape. I know color coding is a big part of what you're doing, but just on our end.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
Anyway.
Last but not least at all, we started rotating who leads our morning meeting, and that has been really beneficial.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Beneficial how?
Um, let's see. I think it's beneficial in the sense that it gets it out of like my head and what I naturally think about and talk about,
Okay.
and it makes it feel a little bit less rote, and I think it disrupts sort of the power dynamic a little bit and gets a little more buy-in with the morning meeting.
Those are all good.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So all you have to do is write it down, and then everyone can do it.
Right.
And refine it. Obviously, it's still a little clunky for everyone. I mean, it
Okay.
depends on the day. Some days it's like this. Nope, none of that today. But some days it's important to have gone over everything because there are topics for everything, or there are not topics. There are items for every topic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool. We still have not standardized our meetings, but it's high on the list now that we're doing a lot of them.
Yeah. It's helpful.
Awesome.
Very helpful. Sweet. Well, that's a good place to finish her.
Indeed.
Thank everyone for listening and following along, and hopefully doing all of your own improvements. And get in touch. Let us know what's going on. It seems like the Instagram account was kind of hot early on, and we've sort of fallen off. But it'd be fun to see people's improvements. Tag us in your posts, all that good stuff, and we'll keep an eye out for it. You can find me on Instagram at Lycan_MFG, LycanPrecision.com, the pod at IncrementalCI on Instagram, and we have a Patreon.
And you can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com. Also, Arta.cards on Instagram and on the internet. And we'll be back next week.
Adios.